All right, so I think we have everybody that was planning to attend now signed in. So welcome all, and thank you for taking the time today to listen to me share some very exciting news about Canary's DAIR program. I would like to mention that I'm filling in as your host today for Eric Bettmanis, Canary's Program Manager for Private Sector Innovation, who became a father last week and is taking time off to be with his newly extended family. So congratulations, Eric. Now, before I jump into the agenda, I need to run through some housekeeping items. First, please take note that we are recording this webinar and it will be posted to social media shortly afterwards. Secondly, although the presentation slides will be delivered in English today, I would like our French-speaking friends to know that my colleague Annie is on the call with us as our translator should you wish to ask or post any questions in French. On the topic of questions, if you would like to ask one, please do so by using the Zoom Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen to type in your question anytime during the presentation, and we will endeavor to answer them all before the end of this webinar. Please allow me to introduce Annie to provide this introduction in French. Over to you, Annie.
Merci, Tom. Bonjour à tous et bienvenue. Merci d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. Notre équipe est bien excitée de vous présenter les changements qui ont été apportés au programme de la DAIR. Juste avant de commencer, vous allez remarquer que ce n'est pas notre animateur habituel. Donc, Tom, aujourd'hui, est en remplacement d'Éric, gestionnaire du programme de la DAIR. La raison étant que Éric occupe un nouveau rôle depuis la semaine dernière. Il est papa. Alors, il est présentement à la maison à s'occuper de sa petite famille. Alors, félicitations à Éric. Avant de débuter, quelques petits points d'ordre. Donc, d'abord, à noter que le webinaire d'aujourd'hui est enregistré et il va être publié quelques temps après sa conclusion. Deuxièmement, malgré que la présentation soit donnée en anglais, sachez que tout au long de la présentation, vous pouvez poser vos questions en français si ça vous convient mieux. Et je vais être présente en coulisses là, pour agir comme interprète. Également, si vous voulez poser une question, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction Q&A au bas de votre écran à tout moment durant la présentation, puis on va y répondre au moment opportun. Alors, sur ce, je redonne la parole à Tom. Alors, Tom, back to you.
Thanks so much, Annie. Can we advance the slide, please, to the agenda? Okay, so thanks, Victoria. Our big news item today is the introduction of AWS Enhanced Services to DAIR. Next slide, please. When the DAIR program first introduced a hybrid cloud, we fully intended to include access to public cloud services. However, for several reasons, we discovered that this was not going to be possible under the current model. The DAIR user community informed us of the importance of having access to these public cloud services to speed up their development of their products. So we went forward and designed a new model and are excited to launch DAIR Enhanced Services starting Monday, August 28th. This new model brings with it a different way to access DAIR using the native cloud management interfaces directly to AWS and OpenStack for our DAIR GPU tenants. Unfortunately, we were unable to support Azure in the new model. The current cloud broker management interface will no longer be available or necessary beginning next Monday, August 28th. When your DAIR account is automatically migrated next Monday, you'll receive an email with your updated DAIR access details. Should you have any issues accessing DAIR, you can reach out to our support by posting to DAIR the help channel in Slack or by email to dair.admin@canary.ca. Rest assured, your existing workloads in AWS and GPU in OpenStack will remain in their current running state during the migration. However, any provisioning changes from that point on must be done in the native cloud management interface. Beginning next Monday, you'll have immediate access to over 12 enhanced services in AWS. I'll share the list of these initial services available to you in the next slide. Eric has been communicating with the DAIR user community to find out which of the AWS services are of most interest and has developed a services roadmap based on your feedback. You can look forward to a published version of the services roadmap on the Canary website with details of what additional AWS services are coming next. If you have a specific service or are dependent on one or plan to use with your product, I encourage you to contact Eric directly or post it on the DAIR Slack workspace so that we can consider it for the services roadmap. Our next announcement is just as big as the first. Canary is pleased to announce today that the DAIR tenant monthly spend limit has been increased to $1,000 a month. This public cloud budget increase, along with access to the cloud services, will greatly enhance Canadian SMEs' ability to develop, test, and introduce new products at a pace like never before. I would like to remind you, however, that DAIR is intended for the design, development, validation, and/or demonstration of your product or service, and the DAIR Cloud is not to be used as your production environment. Now, let me talk about changes to the DAIR GPUs available in our private OpenStack cloud. We continue to make NVIDIA GPU technology available to DAIR tenants. However, in order to maximize utilization and at the same time increase the GPU resources requested by our users, we've moved to a new model. In the past, all DAIR tenants had access to a small GPU instance with limited memory allocation on a first-come, first-served basis. Now, to access a GPU in DAIR, you must request it before it's assigned. A request for a GPU can be made during the application to DAIR, or if you're a current tenant and would like to add a GPU, you can send an email request to dair.admin@canary.ca. When you request access to a GPU, a meeting will be set up so you can explain what you're building, as well as your GPU resource requirements. If we can satisfy your requirements, a custom GPU will be provisioned and you'll be granted to you for a period of 6 months. If our GPU pool is currently fully utilized at the time of your request, you might be placed on a wait list until one becomes available. We'll then notify you when your GPU is ready for you to use. More details on accessing GPUs in DAIR can be found on our website. GPUs in AWS. This is interesting because since accessing a DAIR GPU in OpenStack does not count against your monthly spend amount for public cloud services, it should be your first choice. However, depending on your requirements and the GPU leasing cost, using a GPU in AWS may be a viable option to you. Please notify DAIR admin team by email again if you would like to request access to an AWS GPU instance. We can enable access to deploy AWS GPUs to your account so you can use your monthly allotted budget towards a GPU instance on AWS. Do be mindful, however, though, when using your AWS budget, GPU in AWS could quickly deplete your monthly budget as they are quite expensive. Some news about upcoming webinars. We're in the final planning stages and we'll be announcing a series of webinars in collaboration with AWS on topics that are of high impact to Canadian entrepreneurs. Some may be technical, but we also wanted to focus on the business side too. So please watch your inbox and the announcements channel in Slack so you can register for these upcoming webinars. If you have a topic you would like us to consider for a future webinar, please share it with us in Slack or email. Could you please advance the next slide to to show here. Here's a list of the AWS services that will be available beginning on Monday. And at this time, I'll ask Don, or introduce Don McCullough, our cloud architect, to prepare for taking over the presentation. And he's going to give us a live demo and give you a glimpse into how to access some of these new services. Over to you, Don.
So, okay. Everyone should be seeing my interface, my desktop now, and see a nice AWS logged in account.
We can see it, Don.
Cool. Okay, so let's get started here. When you come into your account day one, you will get an email that will give you the URL for your account, including the account login account number in the URL to allow you to log directly into your account. You'll get a username and password. That password should be changed, and you should enable 2FA right away. You have an account that has access to $1,000 a month, and it should be protected as thoroughly as you can. A compromised account is hard to get back. So here we go. I'll get started here and show you around how to do some of the things that you need to do day one. We'll start with IAM. IAM is where you can create users, you can create groups. Those groups can be used to give users permissions other than the default group. You're given a group already called administrators, and there's many other groups you can create based upon roles and policies that already exist, and you can tweak them further as you need to using JSON policies. So you just have to look into what you can do to create policies to have as granular a control as you want. Day one, I would like you to log in, and you will see a setup like this, only you will have one account. It'll look like Tom's or Shagun's account here with your first name, last name, and it will be the only account in the environment. What you need to do, we're going to assume your test user today because this is my test account. And you'll notice that there is no virtual key MFA token assigned to these users. This is a bad situation, and when you create your users, you should be encouraging them to set up an MFA token right away to further secure their account, to keep them from losing their account. You do that by coming into the actual account by clicking on the name, and then coming over here to Security Credentials tab. Then you can just assign an MFA device. And when you assign an MFA device, Authenticator app is the best solution for quick and easy, effective use. If you do have a security key or a hardware token that is compatible with AWS, you're welcome to use it here too. But by default, most people don't. And something like Google Authenticator is a great option. You need to give it a name. My choice for any name is to start off with some identifier to the owner. In this case, I'm just going to say Don's, and then I'm going to say iPhone, and then I'm going to say Google. That way, if Shagun or I are helping you resolve an issue with this, we know that it's your phone and you use the Google Authenticator app. Kind of thing, and we can give you some hints where you might find that two-factor capability. Once you've done that and given it a name that makes sense, click next, and whoops, Google too. Next, and you can show QR code. You can show this, the secret, and copy the secret and put that in if you don't like scanning QR codes. What that'll do is that either way will start an MFA token inside the app. You can use most Password managers also have this capability. So you decide how you want to do this. But some way you need to register this token, and then you need to put in 2 consecutive tokens. They don't have to be the first one that shows and the second one that shows. They just have to be 1 followed by a refresh to the second one. And then click Add MFA. That will totally and utterly work every time and will get you set up. If you have any trouble with this, reach out to us, and Slack is the best place for quick resolution. Okay, so the other thing we need to do is come back to your user account, and if you're going to use AWS CLI or API calls to do workloads inside AWS, which I highly recommend you look into, then you're going to want to create an access key to do that. The command line interface is the one you want, and you just say, I understand there are recommendations here, and click next. And whenever possible, tag things. Tags are important. Description tag value here, in this case, could be Don's API CLI access, and you create key. What this is going to do is it's going to create a key. And this is your one chance to get this into a password manager or to download the CSV file. Keep this safe. This is the keys to the kingdom. This is going to allow anybody to do anything with the CLI inside your account as you. So be careful with it, but use it to get the job done too. And you can show the secret key and copy them. Use these buttons to copy anything. It saves you a lot of trouble and saves a lot of future pain, because you can always grab an extra space when you're trying to copy these things and it not be clear to you that is in the copy that you just made. And you can save erroneous data that doesn't work, and it can be a lot of trouble. So if you use these copy tools, they just work great. They say access key copied, they're really good about it, and they really work well. With that done, I'm going to say done here. Whoops, I forgot to download that key. Okay, well, if that happens, don't worry about it. This is the truth of any situation that you're dealing with within the AWS environment. And that is you can delete as easily as you created. So basically, if you lose access or lose the CSV file or think maybe you're compromised, deactivate your key. Once your key is deactivated, delete that thing. This is something that happens a lot when you delete. They'll provide you what you need to put in this field somewhere in the text, copy it, paste it, and delete. Boom, it's gone. We don't have any access keys that everyone knows now. It's all good. So that's API keys. What you do with API keys is things like the command line interface. This is the way to get it. If you search AWS command line interface, this will be one of the first links in any search engine. And it'll give you the ability to install the Windows version or the Mac version or the Linux version. If you don't have any of those and you want to use an AWS instance to do this, or you prefer to use an AWS instance inside AWS to do this, then you can set up an Amazon Linux AMI, which will have it pre-installed, and then you just have to configure it with your API keys, or you can install it on any of these platforms that are available in AWS to deploy. So have fun, enjoy it, look into it. I think that it is important to identify that infrastructure as code is the future. That's the way things are going. It's the way most companies in AWS work, and it's the way we work in AWS today. And all the AWS services that we provide, it's all through CLI work and through infrastructure as code. It offers reliability, consistency, and reproducible infrastructure that's easily managed and easily changed. It does take upfront work to develop the code, to develop the capabilities, but those capabilities are long-lasting and very reliable and consistent. And that's the most important one in my world, is I need to be consistent as I'm delivering these services to the community. And that's how I achieve that goal. Okay, that said, let's move on. We have the AWS price calculator. Please use it. It really does help you create an estimate and build out the solution you're thinking of building out in AWS. Get a sense of what the costs look like. You got $1,000 a month to play with. It's easy to go over $1,000 a month and be in a position where you get shut down. That is the thing you need to understand about this new model. Is this new model gives you $1,000. When you hit $1,000, it shuts everything off and locks it until the end of the month. So it's best if you can build your infrastructure so that it fits within that $1,000. It's going to cause you no delays in being able to continue to work in the environment. And that takes some wisdom, but it is doable, and it takes some planning. And the AWS pricing calculator is a great tool to achieve that goal. And just play around with it. Figure out what options work inside budget, whether or not they'll meet your needs, what challenges they're going to introduce, what you can overcome with other things in planning. And it's also good when you're building in AWS to plan ahead for how to be the most cost effective you can be. Every dollar you pay to AWS in your solution is a dollar that comes off your profit line at the end of each month. So that's all I'll say on it, but it is important. It is an important tool. I use it all the time. I cannot do anything with it in AWS without providing this to my boss, Tom, and to my CTO. And I think it's an important piece of being consistent and being effective when you're delivering solutions, is being able to very clearly understand what it's going to cost you and be willing to accept that as part of your solution. Okay, let's move on to services. To start with, we've got CloudWatch. CloudWatch is an interesting tool. It's very underutilized in my experience from people I've talked to, and it's a valuable tool. I definitely encourage you to do some research into CloudWatch and what it can do. It can take the logs in from almost any service, almost any instance, almost anything. It can take logs from the network. You can do like streaming logs from your egress interface. You can, like, this is a troubleshooting tool. It helps you figure out what's going wrong, helps you to figure out why something isn't working. By default, your Lambda logs come here. It's a slice and dice tool. It's a live tail tool, so you can tail a log and you can see what's happening in real time as you do things and as you execute functions. Great tool. Spend some time, figure it out, put it to use. Let me know if you got questions. I've been using it for years, but I think it's well worth some research and well worth putting into play in your environment. Let's deal with EC2. EC2 is here. You'll see there's API errors. This is due to services that are not enabled yet. Load balancers are coming. They're in the roadmap. They're the next release of services includes load balancers. Auto scaling groups will be a bit further out, but it is something that is possible to do. We just need to hear from you if that's something that you want. Nobody's identified it as a need yet, so it's not developed. We will make these services available as quickly as we can as time goes on. Excuse me. When it comes to running instances, I have none right now. That's the way you'll look. I have 2 instances in a stop state for a demo later on, but we'll create an instance right now to discuss some things that we need to discuss. We'll just call this test1. And we'll pick Ubuntu because it's my favorite. And we'll just pick a T2 micro. Yeah, that's fine. We're not looking for a massive instance here to do anything. We're just looking at a demo. Keypairs. Once you create a key pair, you will have a key pair in here. All you need to do to create a key pair is create the key pair by name here. You want RSA tokens. You want the PEM format, unless you're a Windows user who still uses PuTTY. Windows 10 and Windows 11 do have SSH built into the PowerShell. And I encourage you to do that because it'll be consistency in your workloads between running SSH commands and running CLI commands, and creates an excellent way to have the experience we in the Unix and Linux community have had for decades. But it's your choice. If you prefer PuTTY, I'm fine with that. It's just, you just select PPK instead of PEM format. And then create key pair. That will automatically start it downloading like this, and you'll get your key. Once you've got your key, it will automatically sit here. And the only other thing you want to do is, I definitely discourage creating a security group every time you create an instance. Creates massive confusion on how you get those instances to talk to each other. But it is your choice. I choose to select the existing security group and select default. Sorry, tickling my throat. And give me a second to get a mint. Okay. We've got default security group set, and we've got an 8 GB volume, which is plenty. That'll give us enough room for the OS and our data. And you can change the number of instances up here if you wanted to do more, but we don't in this case. And there's a whole bunch of advanced details here you can get into if you want to. No need to. You can just launch. And then come here and go to launched instance. And you'll see your specific instance searched for here. And you'll see it's in pending mode, but if we do a refresh, it'll probably be quick. We'll just move out of pending mode, sorry, out of that instance mode, and you'll see it in a list of instances. And there we go, it's running. So now that that's running, how do you connect to the instance? Well, you put a check mark beside it and you click connect. And you'll get the instructions on how to SSH to that instance, including an example command to run. So pay attention to some things, like they say to run the command if necessary to ensure your key is not publicly viewable. You need to set up your key so that it's not read write to the world. So that command will do it. That should work in Linux and Windows without a problem if you're using PowerShell. Then you can SSH in. If you downloaded a PPK, then you have to follow the instructions from PuTTY to get that SSH selection working. But there was something we forgot to do. If you go back to EC2 here, security groups, go to this security group and edit the rules. Make sure to add a rule. Call it SSH. You can select SSH because that's what we're going to be doing in this case. And then right here, my IP, you can just select my IP. Always tag your resources. No. There you go. Don't put special characters in. And there we go. We got a rule. At that point, you're good to go. Now, some things to think about when it comes to EC2. You've got this instance. You know how to connect to it. You know how to deal with security groups. Keypairs are down here in network and security. And so are elastic IPs. One change I want to bring to your attention that people are going to notice is starting to hit the bill is elastic IPs. If you don't assign an elastic IP to your account, then you won't pay for your flexible IPs, your internet IPs. But when you reboot an instance, you will get a new IP, and you'll have to change your DNS. If you have DNS to that instance, you'll have to change your commands and change your default look and feel. Elastic IPs are permanent as long as you don't remove them from your account. If they're associated to your account, you can do that by just associating elastic IP and say associate, and boom, you get one. Now you've got one, you start paying for it. But it does provide you with the ability to have an external DNS, to be able to use DNS services, to be able to get the kind of capabilities that you probably want for your application. So just use them wisely when you don't need them, or it's not important to keep the external IP the same. Just don't set it up that way. If you deploy an instance without setting one of these to assign, it is not a billable IP address that you get. So keep that in mind, but it is not a permanent IP address. It's a dynamic one that can be changed whenever you reboot. Okay, the only other thing I've got is Keypairs. If they're not in use, delete them. Okay, it's that simple. If you're not using any kind of key, or it's been compromised in your opinion, your box was compromised, I don't know, you had a security incident, delete these things. Just grab them and delete them. But if you have a key and you want to put it in AWS, you can use it here too. You can import that key. Okay, so it's flexible. You can do whatever makes sense for you. Keypairs is where you do any of that. Okay. Let's take a look at what, let's discuss a little bit about what the difference is between a couple of different blocks that are in the system. So AWS has got service limits. Those service limits need to be there we go. So you got these service limits, and you can take a look at this. This is some of the policies we have in place. You're not allowed to use this service yourself. We have to do it for you. But when you do hit a service limit, you can let me get back here. You can tell us what you were trying to deploy and ask if the service limit can be increased. We will look into it. AWS puts these service limits in place because they want to have a ticket saying you definitely agree to spending that much money. The place where this exists is GPUs and any of the supercomputer instances. It's an agreement that you're making with AWS when you submit one of these things to accept the bill for the cost. And they want that from you before they're going to let you have access to it. So if you hit one of those, let us know and we'll deal with it. Now you're also going to see policy impacts, and load balancers are an example of this, where load balancer service hasn't been enabled yet. It's in the next round of the roadmap. So we plan on having this service online soon. And you'll notice that you are not allowed to access this because of a service control policy. This is us. If you see that and it's a service you want, let us know. We can put it on the roadmap, and we can start to provide dates for when those roadmap features are built. We need to build controls around them. We need to build, our model is around creating a secure environment where you know you get no bill, and where you know that you don't have to worry. And we also needed it to be a place where we don't have to worry. So we built this model to suit our needs and your needs. And we will continue to work with you to make it better and better every month. Okay. Next thing I have to show you is RDS. RDS is also enabled, and you're welcome to use the RDS service. You can create a database. As far as types of database to stick to, I would say Aurora MySQL or Aurora Postgres is a very good option. That is, you can start off with a small database that will dynamically expand to meet further connection requirements. As your app demands more, it will dynamically expand and grow. And it's a great solution. It does come with some tie-ins to AWS because there is certain aspects to the way they've implemented the MySQL and Postgres SQL that databases that is a little bit AWS centric. So if you want to move off of AWS when you leave DAIR, you may want to pick up MySQL database. It's a little bit easier to export and have the export be compatible with another cloud. That said, the only other thing I would recommend is that you really consider a dev test tier database. They do not require to be redundant. They do not require as big of an instance type, and you can get away with a much more cost-effective database and get things set up the way you want. And yeah, look at database authentication, configuration. I'm not here to show you how to do this. There's lots of docs on how to do this. I'm just letting you know the service exists and some recommendations. But you can throw this at VPCs that you want specifically. You can set it up to connect just to an EC2 instance, which I highly recommend. You know, that is a really great way to keep the security tight between these two. All these features and functions exist. So play around with it. Figure out what works for you. Remember to use the pricing calculator and get a sense for what these things cost, and you'll be very successful. Okay, so that's RDS, and only two more. I've got Lambda here, and I've got a little Lambda function. And it's basically a simple function to illustrate the power of Lambda. Lambda is a serverless code running tool. It is a highly effective tool for managing the interactions between the services, to automating services, to automating functions that happen in your application environment. It can be used to intercept a web call and send data to a database, or it can be used to automate a function when an event happens in the environment. Many of the services, you can use an SNS message that is enabled as well, that would send an SNS message to an SNS handler in Lambda and run a specific action. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with this tool. It is infinite in its capabilities, and it's instrumental to me every day. So what this code does is a very simple thing. There's a good idea if you've got a development environment and you've only got one developer and he works between 8 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night. Maybe at 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, you want to turn all your instances off, and you want to turn them back on at 7 o'clock in the morning. Save yourself 12 hours of billing. That's a very quick way to cut your costs in half. And during a development cycle, you may not need to leave it running during the off period when your developer is off for the evening. So this is code I wrote that does exactly that. What it does is we're gonna run it in a second and I'll show you, but basically it uses Botto 3, which is the API framework for AWS. Check out botto3.aws.com to see how Botto 3 works and all the different code examples there are. But it's a very extensive control framework for AWS. And it does a Botto 3 resource request on EC2 for region CA Central 1. And that's been assigned to the EC2 variable. The running instances is set to EC2, an EC2 instances filter on running instances value, on instances in the running state value. And the stop instances is set to instances state name is set to stopped. And we had one instance in running state and two in stopped. So we should have two in running and one in stopped when this runs. So what it will do is stop running instances and start stopped instances. If they're all stopped, then it will start them all. If they're all started, it will stop them all. But in this case, we got a mix, and it should run and do both. And we come to running instances, we'll see my test server is already running. And if we testy1 is stopped, and the second instance is pending. There we go. And testy1 is stopped. And there you go. So if all three are running, start instance, we'll just let that puppy start. We'll have all three running. There you go. And we can give them back to Lambda. And save ourselves some money once this demo is done. Test it again. You can set triggers for this by adding a trigger. The power of this tool is just unbelievably infinite. Play around with it, read the docs. And now we have 0 running instances. Stopping or stopped. There you go. Last thing I want to cover is Cost Explorer. Cost Explorer is a great tool for figuring out what things are costing you and how you can improve things, what can be done differently. And you can get a utilization report that'll talk about utilization of your instances. And you can set up specific links to specific data and ranges and times. There's also the billing console. Let me fix that. You're supposed to have access to the billing functions. I'll fix it. It's something is broken. And if you see that, let me know. Oh, they've changed the permissions. I need to adjust my permissions. Okay, we'll get it working. But what you can do is see your bill, and you can see your bill on any given day, so you can see the status of things yourself. And away you go. There we go. Demo is done. If there's questions, thoughts, I welcome. Otherwise, back to Tom.
Thanks so much, Don. That was really great. There are some questions, so I'll keep you off mute for the time being. I did answer a couple of them. I just want to make sure that I answered them correctly, so I'll get Don to qualify. The first question was, would you allow Glue, SageMaker, Container Repo? And my response was, we'll consider these additional services for the roadmap if you send your request to dair.admin@canary.ca. FYI, SageMaker is on the roadmap already.
Yep.
Elastic Container Registry is not yet on there. Glue, I understand, is very similar to maybe Lambda with triggers, might be able to accomplish the same thing as Glue. I'm not 100% sure.
Yep. Yeah, in a lot of cases it can. Glue has some specific capabilities which might be valuable, and we're not assessing what is valuable. We're setting our roadmap and our resources at enabling services that will benefit the community. And so if there is a need in the community and there's nothing of higher priority, it'll be worked on. If I see that there is compatibility with a service we already have, I might do a little demo on how to use the other service to achieve that goal. Yeah, there are capabilities that overlap a lot of times.
Okay. The next question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just noticed a question come in, anonymous attendee. Athena is not supported yet. EMR is not supported yet, but S3 is supported. And you can use S3. Sorry, that was a miss on my part. I should have covered that as a service. But yes, S3 is supported, and you are welcome to use it any way you want. Create a bucket, whatever you like. It will only work in Canada Central, but where's Canada Central? There we go. And you can basically process, make public or secured and locked down buckets at your will.
Hey, Don, that's a good thing to talk about too, is the Canada Central region. Is the default profile for everyone going to be, that's your default region?
No, it can't be, because we can't set it unless we log in as a user, and we don't ever log in as your user account. Your user account has to be set up directly, and because of where it sits, that permission sits in the account configuration. That is outside of the purview of the user's access right now because of the ability to leave the organization if you have it. So we want to control when an account leaves the organization. So we can't make that available. But what you can do is it will automatically set it to what your last region was. So basically, when you come to like EC2, for example, change northward, you'll see that all the APIs are gone because we only allow Canada Central.
Okay, and so Don, there's another question from Darwin. Is Canada West going to become available?
If Canada West is available, I will add it. Right now, Canada West is not available in regions that I can see. Yeah, I need to check on that, but it wasn't available in the interface when I built it. So it is what it is. If it becomes available, yes, I will. As services that we are compatible with, we will do it.
Darwin said it's coming available Q4 of this year.
Yeah,
or
Q1 next. Yeah, no, I knew it was on the way. I just hadn't heard I hadn't looked into whether it was available yet. So that's good to know. But yes, when it becomes available, it's a quick policy change to allow me to do it.
Great. One of the other questions was, will we be able to access AWS Console directly or through Cloud.Canary web app only? That's the old interface, Cloud.Canary.
Yeah. No, what you'll get is you'll get a login, much like the login I see. Yeah, no, I'd have to be an IAM to see that. Your login will look like this login.
Yeah, so the short answer is that was discussed earlier in the agenda, that the old user interface will be offline, unavailable, and not required as of Monday. And you'll get your email with your new access information to log in directly to the AWS console. All right, can we, thanks, Don. Can we flip back to the presentation and have one more slide to get through before we wrap things up?
You got it.
Thanks so much. Right, so this is a call out to Canadian small businesses. You're probably aware of our Booster Pack catalog. It's gotten great reception. We are always on the lookout for additions to our Booster Pack catalog. So if you want to become a Booster Pack builder, I encourage you to submit an expression of interest or EOI on our DAIR website. There's lots of perks, and it does pay 50,000 Canadian for this contract to deliver a solution that gets added to our Booster Pack. So please consider that. And finally, talking about our Booster Pack catalog, if you haven't visited the catalog recently, I highly recommend you check out some of the recent additions from FormKick, Ecosystems Informatics, Intellius, and Parabellix. They all are pretty awesome and cover a range of emerging technologies, including AI, ML, natural language processing. There's one on data pipelining and dynamic application security testing and more. So please check that out. And by the way, we've converted all of the deployment scripts that will be live on Monday for these booster packs to use CloudFormation to give you quick and easy deployment in AWS, and the instructions and documentations are simple and easy to follow. So please check it out. I'm going to do one last check. There's another question that came in. Are there going to be AWS cost limits? And how about intellectual property developed on the platform? So the intellectual property is always yours. Whatever you develop, we have no access to it. So you retain all intellectual property for the applications and services that you're building under your company umbrella. Are there going to be cost limits? Yes, we did mention this, that we did increase your cost limit. You can spend up to 1,000 Canadian per month in AWS Cloud. There is no cost or impact to your budget or limit, monthly budget or limit, if you're using a GPU in the DAIR private cloud. So that's the difference there. And Don mentioned we do have cost controls in place. So if you exceed your monthly budget, Don mentioned your VMs will be shut down, the services will be suspended until the start of the next billing period or the start of the next month. So again, I'll repeat what Don said, start small and gradually build it. Use the Cost Explorer to figure out how much your solution you're building is going to cost you, so that you can keep within your budget and you won't have any interruptions. That's not what we want to do, is interrupt your smooth development of your products and services. So you know what the budget is, try to work within it, and life will be good.
Yep. The one correction there, Tom, is it is 1,000 USD.
Okay, and yes, 1K a month excluding GPUs in the private cloud. If you're using GPU in AWS, if you're requesting that, that's going to burn down your budget quite quickly. And one last question here, and then we have to close it out. Will the current GPUs be accessible through a new interface? Yes, it will be. That will be directly through the OpenStack management console or web interface, and you can contact Don or support on if you're having issues or questions about how to manage your provisioning in OpenStack.
Yep. And what you'll get if you have a GPU today is you'll get an email which includes your AWS URL and credentials and your OpenStack URL and credentials, both of them. If you are not a GPU user today, you will just get your AWS credentials.
Great. Well, that's a wrap for today. I hope you find all of the enhancements to DAIR beneficial to the growth of your business, and we wish you much success. So until next time, thank you all.